Hola, muy buenas tardes a todos. Buenos días, mucho gusto. Es un placer estar aquí con todos ustedes. Mi nombre es Roberto Sosa, soy director de C12 Logistics, una comunidad de profesionales en cadena de suministro y logística. Estoy muy contento de estar aquí. El día de hoy tenemos una masterclass muy interesante donde vamos a hablar sobre el tema de ventas y operaciones, Sales and Operations, ¿no? Titulado To the Next Level of SOP, Key Strategies, Benefits and Results. Y para esto quiero presentarles al doctor Muddassir Ahmed. Diana, por favor, si me ayudas con el slide. El doctor Muddassir es un speaker internacional, es blogger, tiene más de 54,000 contactos en LinkedIn, es un influencer en toda la palabra en la industria o en la comunidad de supply chain. Él tiene un doctorado en la Universidad de Lancaster en ciencias, además está certificado en Six Sigma y también es fundador de una plataforma.
Ajá. ¿En dónde están ustedes? ¿En dónde están ustedes entonces?
Con la intención de brindar mejores prácticas a los profesionales en cadena de suministro, resolver problemas y afrontar sus necesidades del día a día en sus operaciones, ¿no? Es una plataforma que ayuda mucho al tema de guías prácticas, ebooks para mejorar de manera práctica toda nuestra logística, ¿no? So, thank you, Doctor, for this collaboration with C12. I know it's some late in Dubai. Thank you for your time, and all the audience is yours. Thank you for the knowledge. I think you are in mute, Doctor.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Roberto, for having us. It's been my pleasure. And thank you for the collaboration. I'm looking forward to the group and all the good work you guys do in C12. I've been following. Thank you for creating the videos and the graphics. This is pretty good, right? So appreciate that. So what I'm just going to do is just jump into the slides directly, so we can follow the conversation. It should take less than half an hour. So what I intend to do today is to give you the overview of the SNOP, tell me what sales and operations planning is about, and then we talk about the challenges of deploying the SNOP, right? I think Roberto has mentioned everything what I need to know about me, but I want to just mention one more topic which is relevant to the discussion. My first job in supply chain was actually a demand planner, so I myself in 2007-8 starting working as a demand planner, deployed SNOP first time. Then I became a supply chain manager in a company called Eaton, so deployed into a manufacturing void. Then I went to a manufacturing plant in Warwick. I deployed that as well, SNOP there, and then become a divisional supply chain manager into a company called Eaton Life Safety. So I deployed at a divisional level. So I have worked almost all my life in SNOP, even in my recent job as well. So once I finished my PhD, I basically started doing a blogging, and my purpose here is to serve the supply chain community, right? Is to give them a knowledge content, books, etc. So you can go and follow myself on SCM Dujo on LinkedIn. And what you will going to find there's about 190 plus articles I've written. There's a lot of useful guides, KPIs, dashboards. Especially what is very interesting there is the self-assessment tools I have created for your warehouse improvement or materials management improvement. So you can go and download and conduct your self-assessment, and then you can figure out what are the gaps in comparison to a best practice, and you should be able to find knowledge content to close those gaps. So that's what I do to start with. One of my favorite saying here is basically I generally start with this, talking about the productivity, right? So productivity is never an accident. It is a result. It is always a result of commitment to excellence intelligent and planning focused effort. SNOP is essentially that. You have to commit to that process, and you have to plan, and you have to make sure it happens, right? So let's jump into it. So I'll briefly explain you today, because we have a short of time. Generally, I conduct this course for about 3.5 hours, the masterclass. So I have taken a little portion of that masterclass to discuss with you. So I'm going to discuss what is the definition of SNOP and how we are going to position that into supply chain. So you understand that SNOP, sales and operations planning, is just one of the key processes into overall supply chain planning. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the challenges I have noticed in my 15-16 years of deployment. So you learn from this. You can learn from my mistakes or what I've learned, and you should do better in your current job. Right. So what is essentially an SNOP, right? So sales and operations planning is a process to help you deliver better customer service, lower your inventory, shorter lead time, and more stable production rates, right? Better management of overall business, and a team building mechanism across the whole senior management organization. So it's essentially, it's a process. I want to emphasize word on the process, because process by definition is a set of activities. So think it like a box, SNOP. There's an input, there's a set of activities, and there's the output. So you have to work on the process efficiency to get the benefit. It is a cross-functional planning process, is designed to keep demand and supply. So if you don't remember anything from today's discussion, just remember this one line, right? Which is, it is a cross-functional planning process. That means it's not a supply chain process. There's a people involved from sales. There's a people involved in marketing. There's a people involved in production. There's a people involved in finance function. It's leadership people involved, right? So it is not just a planning process. It is a cross-functional process across the organization to keep the demand and supply in balance. So in simple word, if SNOP is working, and that is what it's supposed to do, that it's supposed to find a balance between demand and supply. So if the demand is going up, it will tell you by what rate is going up and how you find the supply or chase capacity, or your demand is going down, how much excess capacity you have and how you can reduce the capacity. So I teach in university, and I asked one of my student in the class, and I said, what is the real purpose of a supply chain professional? Just explain me in one simple line. And she said, our main job is to basically manage demand and supply. And that's true, because we work in aerospace, we can work in electrical, we can work in food industry, we can work in FMCG, wherever. Essentially, what we're trying to do as a supply chain professionals is to understand our customer demand and find the right capacity, right supplier to meet the demand. That's what we do, right? So SNOP is the process designed to achieve that essence. So this is achieved by continually monitoring your external market changes through the sales team, communicating these changes to the internal organization. So you talk to the sales guys, you ask them what is actually happening, right? And then on the top of that, you pass this information to your supply organization, and then so they can make the result accordingly. Person in the supply chain, finance, and production department utilizes this information to optimize purchasing and production operations. So very simply, what happens is you look into your history of sales. Then you use the statistical demand to create your statistical forecast to basically try to predict the future. And then you talk to the sales guy, say, okay, am I on the right track? Is my demand going to go up? Demand going to go down? What are the market factors, pricing, promotions? And you set up your unconstrained demand plan. You take this information and then you give it to your operations team, your supply team, purchasing team, and they will basically tell you on that they can have enough capacity or they can supply or not. Okay, then the financial people get involved and they will tell you what is the implication if you want to make inventory. The point is cross-functional process, working together against to achieve one goal, which is managing demand and supply. Right. Okay. So essentially, I'm saying the same thing here is to the purpose of SNOP, that you understand the customer demand, create the right inventory, and create the stable production, right? So if you don't have a stable production, you're not going to achieve the right level of inventory. So this one picture is also the essence of SNOP, right? So SNOP encourages proactive decision-making and formalize the business communication process. So this word, the encouragement of the proactive decision-making, it's very important, right? Because SNOP forces you to look into the future. It forces you to say, let's talk about what will be your unconstrained demand in 12 months, right? Let's talk about by what product line or product groups will go up in the 12 months. And it will say, okay, to achieve that demand plan, do we have the right people? Do we have the right machines? Do we have the right material? Do we have the right capacity? Do we have the right talent? So it forces you to look in the future, and then it will help you identifying the scenarios where you have to force to make some decisions. Because, for example, most of the business in supply chain are cyclic. You know, in some businesses, first half is higher and then goes down in second half of the year, or some businesses are super busy at the end of the year because of Black Friday sales, whatever, and then they goes down in summer. Depends on your cyclic nature. It forces you to look into those cycles, look into your trends, and say how you're going to manage this time, right? Or if you are working on Chinese New Year, where the Chinese supplies goes down, or there's a long summer holidays in Europe, how are you gonna measure that? So SNOP help you with balances demand and supply. It's a functional process. Because you're looking into your future, it forces you to avoid any surprises, right? And you have to apply all your market knowledge and intelligence to understand what's happening in the future, right? And then so it will help you, really, unless there's any more COVID coming in, it will help you to avoid any surprises. Last but not least, it talks about one set of numbers. So what generally happens in the business is the sales guys, they have their own forecast. The finance people, they do their own inventory forecast. The supply chain people, they have their own demand plan. And that's a wrong thing. As one business, we talk about supply chain maturity. In the second level of supply chain maturity, where there are silos in the organization, we encourages people to go into level 3 of maturity, where we talk about integrated enterprise. That means at least in the business, all the functions talk to each other. The level 4 maturity, where we all want to achieve, is the extended enterprise. That means you should be able to talk to your suppliers and customers, and should be able to exchange data to have a better visibility. Most of the businesses are not there, but with the cloud, I'm hoping we will get there. But at least to achieve the level 3 level of maturity, which is integrated enterprise level, we should have one demand plan, we should have one inventory forecast, we should have one financial forecast. And SNOP help you achieve that one set of numbers. So there is no confusion. Most importantly, SNOP helps you achieve, helps you to communicate the same targets, same objectives, same gaps, same issues, right, into as a communication tool across the organization. So it will become a key driver for your business communication. Now, so this is slightly complicated slide, however, very interesting. I'm going to go through this slightly quickly, but I have made a video for a longer version of this discussion into my channel. So if you go to SNDujo and check the 5 levels of supply chain planning, you will find a more detailed version. So let me cover this briefly here. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, on the x-axis there is let's call it a frequency of planning, and on the y-axis there is the organizational breadth or complexity, right? And here you see the data profile. We're talking the customers and the orders or piece parts. So every business have a high level strategy. So you say, okay, that's my 5-year strategy. You take your 5-year strategy and you convert that into a business plan for next 2 to 3 years of business plan. Right. So for example, you say, I want to grow so I'm a Middle Eastern company, and then I say, I want to grow my business in Latin America, for example, right? And for that, I need to grow my business in Mexico because it's one of the most populous and English-speaking countries. So that's my strategy, right? But I have to convert that into my business plan. Business plan says, okay, to achieve that level of growth as individual, I need to find partners. I need to find some key customers, right? I need to find some, for example, content or products which will help the Latin American or Mexico market, right? So I'm collaborating. So once I identify that, then I put a profit plan in. So profit plan or budgeting in most businesses, it's all about what's going to happen in 2020 next year, right? So most businesses right now, what they're doing is they have already done it, that they have set up their targets for 2022. This is a profit plan. So for example, I might say my target for SM Dojo is to, have at least 1 or 2 events and maybe find 500 followers from Mexico. That's my profit plan, right? Or sell them, I don't know, X amount of trainings to them. So once you set up those profit plan for next year, you have to convert that into a weekly discussion or monthly discussion. So one of the beauties of SNOP is essentially it takes up your strategy high level and convert into a language which become more operational. So let me explain. So profit plan is basically review every monthly. SNOP is done on a monthly basis where you look into your unconstrained demand, you look into your key customers, markets, promotion, and you say, what's happening? So both SNOP and profit plan are basically visibility centric. So we are not really executioning anything. We're trying to see what's happening in future in simply, right? So we can make good decisions, right? To understand the demand and how we're going to find the capacity. So you take that and then you go a level down and we talk about, so even at this SNOP and profit plan, we're talking about products, we're talking about key customers, we're talking about how many orders, we're talking about money, right? Maybe quantity at some point. But we take that demand and we move into your master production scheduling or supply chain planning. That means what raw materials I have to order, how much is the lead time, what is my safety stock, how much inventory I need to carry. So this is where weekly planning comes into it. So when you put down your weekly production plan, weekly plan, then you talk about factory planning. Factory planning means you're issuing your work orders to your production team and you're trying to understand are they executing or not. It's a longest discussion. The point I'm saying is SNOP is one of the key elements between yearly profit planning and the weekly daily factory planning, right? So it's basically act as a bridging process, which is very important to note. Now, okay, so let's look into the importance of balancing demand and supply. Okay, as a supply chain people, it's more like a common sense for us to know that what will happen if the demand exceeds supply. So I keep saying this word about SNOP helps you meet demand and supply, right? But let's give it a second to understand what if that is not possible. So what if the demand is higher than supply? What happens when the demand is supply? Then as a supply chain people, our life gets very, very busy, very, very miserable, right? That there's a late deliveries, there's past dues, higher product lead time, customer is demanding status meeting, you're getting a very angry phone calls from your sales guys, from your customers, they're complaining and they're asking for air freight and premium freight. And that means you have to put extra money on the table, and that which is basically eroding your margins. There's an overtime in place. You have to keep expediting material. I mean, I remember when I was in Warwick, I was supplying metal manifold blocks to JCB, and we were having so many past dues that we literally have to make 2 manifold, hire a taxi, and ship them on a daily basis. It was just ridiculous, the amount of pressure we have. I mean, we are literally talking about 3 hours of driving, and we hiring taxi to ship like 2 metal blocks. Bad idea, because we just only want to keep the customer happy, because we don't want to stop their lines, right? And this is happening right now. What's happening with the container situation, right? There's not enough container, there's not enough equipment, and everybody's complaining about there's a high demand versus supply, and the cost is going up. But what happened, if you think back, go back last year summer, go back 2020, June, July, August, right? At that point, what's happening is there is too much capacities, but not enough demand. So what happened? There's people sitting around, the direct labor cost goes up, the employee reaction time goes down, people lose their jobs, cycle time goes up, inventory goes high. And again, all of that has a direct implication to the bottom line. So either way, if demand goes up and you don't have supply, or if you don't have extra capacities and supply but don't have demand, it's gonna cost you money. That means it's not profitable, right? So just to summarize this part, so what are the objectives of SNOP? Is to keep the demand and supply in balance, as I mentioned before. Continuously align demand with supply. So if the demand is changing, you need to align your supply. It should create your forward visibility, what's happening in next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, if possible. Specify common plans for execution and help solve the root cause to performance disconnect. That means if you are performing, not performing, and then it will help you to achieve that. Outcomes. So what is the main outcomes when you do this? So on-time performance goes up, you reduce inventory, and you achieve a better financial focus. And this is the end game. So you can put a lot of inventory in, and you can achieve on-time delivery performance, right? But the whole idea is to have a more responsive, agile supply chain. That means you should be able to achieve 90, 95, or whatever your customer on-time delivery targets with the reduced inventory. And I've seen it happening actually. Right. So, okay. So before I go in, so let me give you example. I went to a company called Warwick they have an inventory of 9 million pounds, 12 weeks of lead time, 9 million pound inventory, 12 weeks of lead time, on-time delivery of 65. Pretty bad. Everything was bad. But then over the 18 months, we deployed SNOP, and then we reduced the inventory to half. We reduced the lead time to less than half, and we improved the on-time delivery from 65% to 93. And this is the real game changer. So if you want to measure your success as a supply chain manager, this is a very simple success measure I can give it to you. That how in your business you are achieving very high on-time delivery to your customers while you're reducing inventory and while you reduce lead time, because you're making your supply chain more agile. You are achieving that by reducing inventory, i.e. saving cash, but not doing overtime. That means it's a direct impact to the bottom line of the business. And you are supplying with high on-time delivery performance. That means you are gaining customer reliability, and therefore that customer will give you more business. Therefore, you will increase your top line. So very simply, reduce inventory, reduce lead time, improve on-time delivery. You do that, that means you are a very, very successful supply chain professional. Okay, now let's move to the practical challenges, what I've learned from it. So when we deploy SNOP, is generally the perception is, okay, it's all about the process or it's about the technology. Actually, no, it's less about that, and it is more about the change management, because SNOP is essentially a 5-step process. You start from analytical data, then you do your demand planning, then you do supply planning, financial consensus, and then after that you have your executive review. Okay, but you have to coach people, you have to change people. You have change management, got many different philosophies available. The one I use is called ADKAR, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, reinforcement, and ability. So you have to tell people what is SNOP, what is the benefit, and how it will help in their job, right? So once you do that, then people will be more engaged. I'll talk more about it. Now, so I'll quickly touch base on this. I can send you can take a note of this newspaper. So this is a very good research paper written by Andrew and David, which talks about sales and operation planning exploratory framework. What here the authors are saying of this research paper, they are trying to measure the SNOP maturity on a no SNOP, reactive, standard, advanced, and proactive. And they're trying to measure on 5 different, let's call it criteria point, which is, do you have a meeting? Do you have an organization? Do you have any measurement in place? What IT systems you have and what SNOP integration you have? So the intention for each business is to go from a reactive to proactive, right? We don't have a time for that. I think we can go through in the next masterclass in a bit more detail if you are in Mexico. The point is, there is a very nice research available to understand the level of maturity and then where you can go. So you can Google this research papers. I think is available, or email me, or I can send it to you. Now, so what I have learned from my experience and how to fix it. The first SNOP pillar is people and change management. Everyone will, any SNOP expert will tell you about this. SNOP is more about people and process than very expensive, sexy software. And actually, I recommend against it. I'll tell you more about that. So rather than boiling the ocean, what I would suggest is start small. Start deploying SNOP into a product line or into a group. And once you learn how to do it successfully, then you can expand. You can bring more product lines. You can basically bring more people into the loop, right? So start small, success, learn, repeat. And I would say SNOP generally in an organization sits with a lot of people, maybe supply chain manager or whoever. But if you really want SNOP to be successful, you need to hire a dedicated demand planner and master schedulers, because that position is very important. And if I go and do any change management consultancy and somebody wants to improve SNOP, and this is one of my advice is because this is a very important position, demand planner or master scheduling, because that person is talking to the sales guys, finance folks, operations folks. So that person basically develops a lot of understanding of the knowledge. And if you hire that person with the good leadership skills, so what will happen is that big person will become your successor. And it has happened to me 3 times. So I had 3 promotions in each time. The person who was a demand planner ended up replacing me because of the knowledge of the business, right? And you need to communicate. 7 times communication rule, super important. SNOP process element. That means once you're training people or you're running SNOP meeting, you need to have a very clear agenda, input and output. If you're not clarifying that, then it will not work, right? Data breakdown is important. Preparation of the meeting is super important, right? And create the attendance sheet, because this is again the trick. Because for example, in a demand review, you will want all your sales guys and marketing people to attend. If they're not attending, then it will not going to work. So I used to create this simple attendance sheet, say these people have attended and these people have not attended. So leadership would know that, who is not turning up basically. Then the IT systems and tools, right? So first understand the SNOP before you change or buy any IT forecasting system. Again, start with Excel. I will be actually releasing a SNOP demand dashboard in a few weeks. Go and download, which you can help you to start. Don't buy a software. Build a process, build engagement, and then go and spend, by all means, spend $200,000, $300,000 and buy a fancy SNOP software, which is like O9, Kinesis, or Anaplan. I can connect you with a lot of people. Excel will help in most cases, right? Make it easy for people to use as possible. Okay. My last advice would be use SNOP to start and engage as a project and make it as an initiative. Because the beauty of a project, it has a start point and an end point, right? Gain leadership support and have more structured way of working with the senior team, right? It will reduce your firefighting. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to the challenges and the barriers. Again, you will not find this knowledge in any books or something, mostly coming from the experience and working with some knowledgeable people. Here I'm talking about why SNOP fails, right? And I think you can, if anybody is already working with SNOP, would be able to relate to that, right? The first challenge point we have is the lack of sponsorship, executive sponsorship. And that is super important. I work for a business's leaders who are fully engaged with SNOP, and they are driving it. They want to make decisions, and SNOP survives. And I've also worked for businesses, they don't want to engage with SNOP, and it dies, right? So executive, and that goes with any, if you pick any research paper who talks about management research or management science, like Lean, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, or whatever. And one of the key failure reason is always lack of executive sponsorship. No surprise there, because if your senior leader doesn't think it's important, nobody thinks it's important, right? So if you are on this call, and if you're a senior leader, and if you want people to engage with SNOP, the message is you got to engage yourself first. If you do it, everybody else will do it as well. But the issue we have got as a supply chain people is the executive leaders, your vice president, your CEOs, and they are your chief operating officers. They are very busy people. We need to find a good value of money for them, right? We need to bring them in, and one thing we should do, we should force them to make decisions, because if they are not making decisions, they are not pretty happy about it, right? So we need to force them to make decisions, and then they will engage. One of the reasons SNOP fails is a lack of process knowledge, because it's just very wrong to assume that you said, oh yeah, from next month we are deploying SNOP, and you expect your sales guys just to turn up, or your marketing guys, or your engineering manager, or your finance manager, and basically follow. You got to conduct 1 or 2 days training. Again, on SM Dojo, I have a course for that. It's 2.5 hours course. Download, distribute, no problem. Just take it from me, right? It's not expensive. So once they know each 5 steps of demand SNOP, they know that each meeting have a very set agenda. They know that every meeting have a very set outcome. They know every meeting have a certain deliverables there for the benefit, and they will attend, right? Because one thing all the executives and managers say, why would I attend your meeting? What's in it for me, right? They have to have a certain value from that SNOP, and SNOP provides that value, right? So, but on the top of that, you need to make sure we give a process knowledge that on-time delivery is measured like this, inventory days on hand is measured like that, forecast accuracy measure is measured like this. It's wrong to assume people just know these definitions, right? It's just wrong to assume. So it's, even though most people will know, we need to give them a refresher. Okay. Now the next one is there is no shortcut to success. SNOP takes time. It takes patience. You have to be consistent. You have to be committed, right? And it's gonna take time. It's gonna take 2 to 3 years for you to achieve a mature state, right? And the research actually shows it takes 3 to 5 years, for very simple reason, because SNOP is a monthly process, right? So you're only going to have 1 demand review, 1 supply review, 1 executive review. So even though you're trying to fix something in your SNOP, it's only going to be next month, right? So in 12 months, which is 1 year, you're only going to have 12 attempts to fix something, right? And if you're working on a long lead time supply chain, then it even get more difficult, right? It takes longer lead time to fix it. Okay, so be patient, stick with it, right? As I mentioned earlier, start with Excel, right? Make it work. Get a demand dashboard, get a simple supply dashboard. So when I do a full day training, I actually give tools, I do a simulations, I tell people, this is how demand dashboard look like, this is how you read it, this is how unconstrained forecast work, this is how capacity planning should be done, this is how you identify demand, gap closing actions. So anyway, we don't have time, but the point is, start with Excel, it will work. But at the same time, I'm going to contradict myself. So once you achieve 12 months and SNOP established, Excel becomes very complicated. It's not dynamic. It cannot do, scenario planning. And there's only 1 or 2 people who are super good in Excel. They can use the Excel spreadsheet. If that person is on holiday or enjoying somewhere in Paris, then you're screwed, right? So you have to use software so it becomes easier to use. I mean, you come to me, I can recommend you few. Furthermore, lack of preparation, and this is critical for anybody who works in supply chain and runs SNOP. This is one of my strongest advice, right? By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, right? So SNOP team needs to make sure that you're well prepared, your agenda and actions are clearly represented in a nice and crisp fashion, right? The meetings are set up so people know when to turn up, they can read graphs, it makes a lot of sense to them. Okay. Spend more time in execution, right? Okay, let me tell you what I mean by spend more time in execution. So I go to this slide first. Right. So what generally happens is when we do projects and stuff, right? We spend a lot of time, and especially when we start SNOP, we spend a lot of time saying, oh, I'm going to do this, we can improve this, we can improve that, we can fix this, we spend a lot of time because we're super enthusiastic, right? And then we say, okay, because all the super things we have to improve, we spend a little more time and effort after that in listing down actions, what we need to develop strategy, what we need to fix. And then we spend rushing around trying to basically implement that strategy, right? So if you see what really happens, is because you spend so much time and effort in actually discussing and listing, you get very little time for execution, and you get disappointed after that, right? And say, okay, it's stressful for team that okay, I want to do so many things and I only even done half of it. I suggest that approach should not be adopted. I suggest the approach should be adopted. You discuss vital few things, the things we want to improve, discuss less, list down the actions which we want to improve. Like I want to improve on time delivery, I want to reduce inventory, I want to reduce lead time. 3 things. Very nice. How are we going to do that? We're gonna set up a KPI meetings. We will understand the root cause why on time delivery is late. We're going to do inventory analysis of what is our excess inventory, so on and so forth, right? And then we're gonna look into what is the reason for why we do a process mapping exercise to understand why we have such a long lead time. And then we're gonna work with our suppliers and our planning team to reduce lead time. So if we reduce lead time, we will become more agile. 5 actions. Very nice. And then we focus on executing those actions. Have a KPI meeting, do a process mapping, work with your suppliers to lead time by introducing VMI, right? So if you focus on it, you will start seeing results. So once you start seeing results, then the employees will engage, you will celebrate success. So focus on vital few, you will get more benefit, right? Because by implementation and being successful gains you confidence and you can do more. And then you can add more actions, you can discuss more, and you keep going every month. Now, so the last slide, last point I want to make after the spend more time on execution is the SNOP deployment without basic supply chain process. SNOP, as I showed you at the start, it sits on the visibility level. It's a high level supply chain process, okay? It will not work if your building blocks of SNOP is not there. What I mean by building blocks is you need to have a basic process supply chain. Then you need to know, you need to have a basic inventory management process, inventory planning process. You have to have a basic KPIs. You need to have a ABC analysis. You need to have a structured approach to your MRP. You need to have for example, the process to manage your ERP planning parameters, your MOQs, your demand time fences. If you don't have all those basics, you cannot really build SNOP. So if you don't have a right strategy, what should we make to submit to order, you can't really run SNOP. So get that right first. And this is where SCM Dojo, our intention is to make supply chain simple, make it understandable for everyone. So you should have all those building blocks without really hiring any consultant or anybody. You just go, you do the course, you buy the content, you buy the tricks and tools we have created, you use it. Then you have a building blocks of a good supply chain. Then you focus on SNOP. And then you go for IBP, and then you can do whatever after that, right? Now, so this is what I have also for you folks, to help you guys. I have created a simple SNOP self-assessment. It has a set of questions. You go and you basically tick mark on the questions. It will give you a score. If the score is low, then you know you need a bit more coaching and training. And then you can always come and ask me, and we can help you out as well, or you can ask Roberto for that as well matter. So go and check this out. I'm available onto most of the social media platform. My preferred method is if you contact through Twitter or LinkedIn. Follow LinkedIn. You can contact me. I can help you out. Or on YouTube, I've got 60+ videos helping you guys out as well. And I talk to a lot of supply chain leaders. So I think you will like the content on the SCM Dojo YouTube channel as well. Right, so that is me done from me, and I'm going to unshare that. So Roberto, you will take it from here, right, for Q&A.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for this all knowledge and practical information. And now we will start with Q&A. We have some questions on LinkedIn and here on the chat. We will start with that. Doctor, how can I know the maturity of my logistic processes, and how do I start to implement
Yeah.
SOP without generating too many effects on daily production or operations?
Yeah. Okay, great. So when you say logistic processes, I assume you're talking about materials management processes, right? Okay. So to do that, if you, again, I'm going to refer it. An SMU job got this materials management competency. So we talk about demand planning, supply planning, you're talking about inventory management. So it's got 8 categories, right? And then you got 127 questions. And once you fill that assessment in, right, you will basically know the score. You know how good or bad your SNOP is, right? So as I mentioned before, if you don't have a basic demand planning or inventory management process, then you're not really going to deploy SNOP, right? You need to fix that first. You need to have your right stocking strategies, and how you calculate your safety stock, how frequently you calculate your safety stock, how you decide what is your made to stock, made to order, for example, and how you set up your batch order quantities, how frequently you release your purchase orders, right? Do you have any VMI strategies with your suppliers? What's your total supply lead time? So this assessment will help you doing that. And actually, I'm going to find a link, and I'm going to post it in a minute into a chat box, right? But to use that tool, which is going to help you, and so you deploy those kind of assessments. So I'm going to put that into a chat if I know how to do it. Yes, I'm putting it here, which you can share. So it will help you identify your maturity. And then how do you start? Starting is simple. If you don't know the course 5-step process, you can take the course. We have written a blog, so you can do that. It's not super expensive actually. And then train yourself. And the first step you should do is start with demand planning. Just understand what is your next 12 months demand. By the way, I'm not talking about focus. I'm talking about demand planning, right? So demand planning, demand forecasting is the statistical part. So you look into your history and you create your next 12 months forecast, right? That's just a demand baseline. Then you talk to your sales guys, marketing, and the customers, and then adjust based on their feedback. Then you have the unconstrained demand. So once you have this unconstrained demand, which is either in quantity or dollars, you need to convert that into your supply capacities. That means, let me give you, for example, we make 2 things. We make Apple Watch, and we make Apple headphones as well, right? So we got 2 different product lines. But right now, I am saying I'm gonna sell $10,000 of each, but it's one big number. What I want to do is to split into 2. I say $6 million is my watches, and $4 million is my AirPods. But that doesn't make any sense to the production guys. Okay, so this is our forecast for next 12 months. But we have to split, saying, okay, $6 million of iPhone. That means I'm gonna sell $500,000 every month. My Apple Watches, great. But what does that mean, right? What does that mean in quantity? You convert that into quantity. Say it means, let's call it for easy maths, 5,000 watches per month, right? So if there's 5,000 watches, then you say, okay, but I can only produce 4,300, right? So you can see, you start from your demand, then you convert that money into quantity, and from quantity you said, okay, but even though the demand going forward is 5,000 per month, but I can produce 4,300, then I have a gap of 700. What should I do? Should I hire more people? Should I do overtime? Do I go for should I go for the subcontracting stuff, right? So this is what I said. So the short answer is start with demand planning.
All right. We have another one. You mentioned that it's important the talent than technology. No?
Yeah.
How can we implement a successful SNOP with the technology? Do you recommend any software? If I a medium or a biggest company, what software do you work with? Some software? What type of softwares are in the market?
There are plenty. I mean, it depends. I mean, I work with Focus Pro. I would recommend SlimStock. myself, it's have an inventory and demand planning, very nice suite IBP. It's not super expensive. If you just want to have forecasting software, there's a new forecasting software called SQ Science. You can use them as well. I can send you some links to that. Send me an email. I can send you that as well. So SQ Science is a good one. But if you got a lot of money, you can go O9. O9 is probably the best. O9 is like a Bentley of SNOP. So again, I know people. I know the VP of demand planning. I can get you connected there as well. So there's Kinesis. There is Anaplan. I don't know much about Kinesis or Anaplan, but I would say following, as I said on the session, do not spend any money on a software unless you establish SNOP in Excel. Establish SNOP 5-step in Excel, and then go, once it's become super complicated to manage in Excel, then go and spend money, and by all means buy a sexy software, no problem.
Okay, perfect. I think there's no more questions, so we will have a closing with an.
There is one question. There is a question.
Yeah, there's one about digital transformation. We are implementing SOP for Colombian coffee business. Do you have any specific SOP model in Excel to start?
Yeah. So about digital transformation, we are implementing SOP for Colombian coffee business. Do you have any specific model? Yeah, of course, right? So, I mean, there is a standard model, there is a standard dashboard for it, Javier. That means, I mean, I can show you right now if you want. I can send it to you later as well. Then you basically, it's a dashboard which talks about what is your budget, what is your forecast going forward, what was the forecast last month, right? And then look into your demand planning parameters. You would like to see are your forecast is going up and down, linked with your forecast error and on-time delivery. So there's a dashboard and models available. So again, by all means, drop me a message and email. I will send it to you. No problem. Yes, here to help.
Okay, sounds great. And last question, Doctor. How can we join to SIM Dojo to access all your content?
Very good question. So right now it's just a blog, but now I'm working on a very massive update, right? SM Dojo is now a registered company in Dubai, and I'm working on a massive update in January, mid-January to the 2nd of January. Please go and subscribe to the newsletter or follow me on LinkedIn. You will see the updates, and it will be a membership model, right? A very simple membership model for students and professionals, right? That means you just pay, I don't know, $29 and $59 for professionals, and you get access to, we are going to have 20 plus courses on procurement, demand planning, inventory management, trade management, logistics, cost optimization. And our courses are different. The reason our courses will be different because we will not just going to tell you this is a theory of SNOP or this is what logistics costs look like. Our intention is to give you a practical knowledge. So our teachers are not professors, actually, they are experts. They are the people who worked in industry. They have actually done the job and they are transferring knowledge. People like me who spent 16 years in industry and have the theory to do so. And so the courses itself doesn't help you actually alone, right? What also helps you if you provide the tools to go with it. Like Javier was just asking me, oh, can you give me a demand dashboard? I said, yeah, I can. So now this is what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a pathway, for example, for SNOP managers. You take a course, you take a book we are creating, you take our demand dashboard, we're gonna give you a nice and simple demand forecasting tool as well. So you got all the toolkit to become and start a very successful SNOP in your business. Similarly, we have a program called Logistics Manager, logistics cost optimization, or logistics manager pathway. In that one, we're going to give you nice courses. We have created a warehouse and logistics self-assessment, inventory self-assessment. So we're going to give you tools so you can self-assess your supply chain without hiring any sexy and expensive consultant to identify gaps in your business. So you yourself become consultant. So our job is to make you good enough, knowledgeable enough, then you become a consultant yourself, right? So give you best practice tools, right? Because this is what we are good at. So you identify the gaps of your your inventory management or your supply chain or your procurement processes. And then you can go and close that gap by the knowledge content we are providing. Okay. Right. So January sign up, but they have one more question from Juan. Juan is asking, have you heard from the term SNOP? Yes, which is sales and operations execution. What do you consider to be the difference between SNOP and SNOP? So SNOE is moved from the planning to execution. So execution means we are going down into the execution into a production level. Basically, we're not just leaving to the planning part and say you go and do it, right? And hence the word is sales and operational execution. That means we go into the details of how you, let me give you example, for example. So we have a very good SNOP process. We have a very, very high level, we have a very high level forecast. Everything is good, demand planning good, life is good. But then we realize actually, we were not improving the on-time delivery. We are 1 or 2 days late. The reason we were 1 or 2 days late, because the work, especially I realized, especially in the night shift, people are not completing the work orders, right? So I went to a night shift, I realized the night shift people were lazy and they were leaving this difficult product to the morning people, right? And okay, of course I addressed this issue. So SNOP is basically is trying to tell people that how you execute SNOP better. What are the metric KPI you consider are critical at the moment? Very, very, very good question, Javier. Okay, first important KPI for SNOP. What we said at the start, what is the basic of the SNOP, right? What is the purpose? SNOP purpose is balance between demand and supply. So if you're balancing demand and supply, that means you should be able to meet all your customer requirement. Then how you actually measure that you are meeting your customer requirement, right? Which is by measuring on-time delivery on request. I'm not saying on-time delivery on promise, I'm saying on-time delivery on request. And it may be tough, it may be short lead time, whatever. So if you are achieving good on-time delivery, if your on-time delivery performance on request is improving, that means your SNOP is working. One KPI. Second, we talked about having the right inventory and the balance between production. That means you need to have the right inventory to meet your customer demand. So for example, I used to work for a business, my average supply lead time was 60 days, supply and plus production. I used to have 30 days of inventory in stock, 30 days in transit or work in progress. So my days on hand target was about 45. So as long as I'm keeping my days on hand in 45 days, then I'm good, right? So if it goes like 60, 70 days, then we got a problem. Then you're sitting on excess inventory, obsolete inventory, dead inventory. That means you are not running, you don't have a right balance between demand and supply. Second important KPI is inventory. Third important KPI. Demand planning is all about looking into the future and looking into what's happening in the future. That means demand forecasting accuracy, which is you can start with the forecast error. You can start with the MAPE as well, mean absolute percentage error. You can use however you like, but have one KPI, which is generally forecast accuracy and a bias, okay, to do that, okay? So on-time delivery, inventory, days on hand, or whatever, however you want to manage, let's call it gross inventory targets, and your forecast accuracy. So if you want to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of SNOP, 3 KPIs: on-time delivery, inventory, forecast accuracy. You're welcome, Javier. Pleasure.
We have another question, last question. The Christian Brenes asked, considering that my client is a medical devices supplier in an environment where the 90% of sales are public hospitals, what kind of recommendations do you mention for the implementation process in this company? They have not any kind of demand analysis process.
Roberto, you need to read that again. Sorry.
Considering that my client is a medical devices supplier in an environment where the 90% of sales are public hospitals, what kind of recommendations do you mention for the implementation process in this company?
So 90% of the customers are public hospitals.
Yeah. of cells are public hospitals. Yeah.
Okay. So, how many? I have a lot of questions to ask. I mean, it depends on. So let's start with the number of SKUs, right? Okay. So if you have identify the number of SKUs, how many SKUs you're talking. And again, I come down to I'm not going to even go to SNOP. I'm going to ask a basic supply chain question. I'm going to say, how many SKUs you have? How many are A class item? How many are B class item? How many you have as a made to stock? How many are made to order, right? What safety stocks you are carrying? How are you calculating a safety stock? What is your total supply chain lead time? So I'm going to go to the basics, saying, if you have the basics in place, then we can talk about the demand. So generally, if you know, there's a famous saying of Warren Buffett, forecast tells you less about the future, but more about the person. So your best bet is what happened last 12 months. So if you have a last 12 months usage, we can start with that, right? At least this is, and we can assume the future would be based on this, and then we can measure it. So get the basics right and look to the usage of those materials from the hospitals. If you cannot really have a data to measure the usage, then unfortunately I cannot advise you. That's the honest answer.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all. Thank you, doctor, for this masterclass. We have a lot of questions that we will answer on the next moments. So you will be one of our keynote speakers on Xcaret, coming soon on May. What we can learn of your presence in Mexico next May?
Yes, I'm super excited, and I just want to thank you, Roberto and Elias, for this. And I went to very briefly to Reynosa, actually, a lot of years ago, and haven't really seen in Mexico. So I'm very excited to go and do this fantastic venue you have chosen, and we have got a lot of exciting stuff. And I think we will be talking about what's coming into the future of supply chain, especially around the supply chain digitalization, right? Because I'm writing a book on this topic because everybody's talking about supply chain digitalization, but what does that mean actually? Where to start? How, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What technical knowledge you need? What are the core competencies you need? So that could be one of the topics. And we also talk about supply chain strategy. So we need to basically finalize our topic, but I'll be there for 3-4 days. So anybody wants to meet me, pick my brain, please talk to Roberto and the CS12 team. I'll be their guest, and I'm happy to help whatever you need. I'm here to serve.
We think we will be a nice conference on May. So thank you, doctor. Queremos anunciar que estaremos teniendo todos estos contenidos en C12 Logistics cada mes. Vamos a estar haciendo muchísimo contenido para los profesionales en cadena de suministro y logística. Queremos anunciarles también, muchos de ustedes ya saben que tendremos el evento C12 Logistics en Xcaret, en Riviera Maya, del 3 al 5 de mayo. Les vamos a dejar por ahí la liga de registro para que puedan precalificar y asistir, ya sea como proveedor o como comprador al evento. Entonces, thank you, doctor, for this masterclass. Thank you for this collaboration. Los vamos a dejar con un video acerca del evento y nos vemos por allá. See you there.
Cheers. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Vive la logística en la Riviera Maya. C12 Logistics es el primer evento SMART de la comunidad logística y de cadena de suministro en México. Un espacio colaborativo e innovador de negocios y de capacitación, donde humanizamos las relaciones profesionales, conectando a 200 líderes nacionales de múltiples industrias y 100 proveedores especializados. Creamos conexiones a través de 4 actividades. Educación colaborativa, donde el conocimiento lo generamos todos. Networking significativo, donde conoces a la gente que quieres conocer. Experiencias humanas, donde creamos relaciones y lazos estrechos. y citas de negocios calificadas. Encuentros certeros 1 a 1 entre proveedor y comprador. Reimagina tu logística en el Hotel Xcaret Arte de Riviera Maya. Somos más que un evento. Somos una comunidad. Este 3 al 5 de mayo de 2022.